4 days left. Happy day 86, everybody. If you cannot see that we had the kids here for a little bit for the first 5 days, but it could not continue because they were being too much of a distraction. So if you got your hopes up at day 80 that it was going to be the last 10 days, we apologize that it only lasted 5. So Sadie, take it away with what it means to be kind.
Hey, but for those moms and dads out there, you get it. We could keep going with the distraction, but if you're not a parent yet, you might have been having a hard time focusing. So we got rid of the distraction. We're going to finish strong. The last 4 days, this one's about being kind. And I talk about a story where whenever I was in high school, I loved playing basketball, played basketball all my life. And I was like, I never had this happen before, but after Duck Dynasty started, it got really difficult with just the different crowds coming and people singling me out. And as a high school girl, the last thing you want to be is singled out, and especially for any negative energy that's coming at you. And it was really hard because during my basketball games, all the other school, like this happened twice where all the people would show up in like Duck Dynasty stuff, and every time I would dribble, they would blow their duck call. Every time I would shoot, they would blow their duck call. They would have signs that were just rude about me and something with a duck analogy. It was really hard, and I just remember going into the locker room and like crying at halftime. And I remember I would just not make near as many points as I used to. I was so in my head, and it was just really, really hard. And I talk about this idea of a mob mentality, how there's like a whole psychological thing behind this, how people act differently sometimes in a crowd than they ever would in person. It's like at a football game, people yell stuff at a player, but if it was just them and that player, they would never say that to their face. And so I just challenge you, in a world that can tend to have mob mentalities, that can do stuff in crowds that they would never do whenever it was held to their own personal conviction. Don't be like that. Don't conform to the world. Be transformed by the renewal of your own mind. Be confident to be the kind person, even if you're in a crowd. Don't just go along with it because everyone else does it. If it's not right, it's not right. So it doesn't make it right just because everyone else is doing it. And I think that's a lesson we've learned since we were a kid, but it's hard to hold on to as an adult. But truly, be the kind one even in the crowd.
Hey guys, we're so excited to be joining you on day 86, which so happens to be being kind. The verse is Exodus 23:2. It says, "Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd."
In the devotional today, Sadie is talking about being a part of a crowd. And so when you really think about it, we are all a part of a crowd in some way. And in the devotional towards the end, she's talking about Palm Sunday, and she's talking about how there is a crowd of people who are shouting, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest." And then she goes on to remind us of the story that a couple of days later, it was just a few days after they're praising Jesus, they are hanging Jesus on a cross and yelling, "Crucify him, crucify him." And so I don't know if it was planned, but I love that this is the day today that we get to talk about this, because I didn't realize growing up that this was the story, that there was a crowd of people praising Jesus, and a couple of days later, a lot of the same people found themselves in a totally different crowd yelling, "Crucify him, crucify him." And so I think that really does, when I found that out, I remember I was very shocked that the same people could one day do this and the next day do this. And I was like, how could they do that? How could they find themselves in that place that one day they're praising him, this day they're not? And I think this is the world we still live in, that one day we can do this thing, but if we find ourselves in this crowd the next day, we're going to just fit in. We're going to mold to the people we're around, and we're going to just say, well, they're saying crucify him, I'll say crucify him.
Yeah, I know I struggled with this a lot in high school and college, and there's all these crowds. You're trying to figure out which friend group do I fit in with, and maybe you're at a college with social clubs or maybe even fraternities, and you're just trying to fit in with that crowd. And that is the hardest time to really be bold in your faith, because just the nature of today and the way society works, especially with social media, we're oftentimes afraid to show our faith and be bold in our faith. And I'm not saying that everyone has to do this, but it was a big problem for me. And I deleted all my social media 6 years ago, and I haven't had it since. It's just something that I could not operate efficiently as a Christian. It just affected my walk. And so today is a really tough time with all of that. We're thinking about who are we following on social media and all these influencers that we're watching, and there's a lot of inspiring things that come out of it, but you can find yourself in a situation where you're like, this is taking the place of my relationship with God. It's more important to me what all these other people are thinking about, and it's affecting how I treat people, and it's affecting my actions towards others.
Yeah. I was the same as you were, Reeves. When I was younger, I was in a specific crowd that I began to recognize this crowd isn't good for me. I began to recognize this isn't pushing me in the direction I should be. Even before I was a Christian, I started to recognize this is not the crowd that I should be doing life with, because I recognize the wrong. Yeah. And so if you're in a place like that today and maybe it is a crowd that is full of hatred and full of mean things, and maybe it's even a crowd that's not full of hatred, but it's full of sin, it's full of wrongs, and you want to find yourself in a crowd that's full of people who love Jesus, who are pursuing Jesus, who want to do kind things. Maybe you're in that place. That's exactly where I was. And I began, when I recognized I'm a part of the wrong crowd, I began praying that the Lord would bring me the right crowd. I began praying that the Lord would bring me to the right crowd. And so that's a hard prayer to pray, because that means that what you're comfortable with, what you're used to, is going to fade away. It means that what you're comfortable with and what you're used to is going to become a part of the past, because you're moving on to something different. And so if you're in that place, it's a hard prayer to pray, but begin to pray it. Begin to ask God to bring you to the place that he wants you to be and to the people he wants you to do life with, because truly, it is so true. In some other days that we've talked about, having people to do your walk with, to walk in life with, is so important. Yeah. And it makes such a difference in your walk, because when I was in a crowd of people who were living in a sinful life, I lived a sinful life. Yeah. And today I'm in a crowd of people. My crowd are people who pursue the Lord and who push me to the Lord and who call me out when I'm doing wrong and who call me higher. And because I'm in this crowd now, I find that I can be kind. I find that I can look more like Jesus. I find that I can be pushed towards him more. And so today, we just want to challenge you guys with that. If you find yourself in the wrong spot, begin praying that the Lord would take you from that spot and bring you to a better crowd. You don't have to find yourself yelling, crucify him, crucify him. You can find yourself continuing to praise him even when times get hard. Even when the rest of the crowd is yelling, crucify him, you can find yourself being the one who continues to say, praise you, Jesus. And so we just want to challenge you guys with that today, that you can continue and stand out from the crowd, but the Lord also can bring you to a place that will continue to encourage you, with people that will continue to encourage you. And so, like the challenge is talking about, and like this Devo is talking about, the world we live in today is full of hatred. It's full of unkind things. And so be that kind person today. Be the person that is a light to someone else and shines Jesus today.
And even if you have a crowd that you're moving away from and you recognize isn't the best thing for you, the Lord is calling you to still be kind to those people, because they're going to be looking at, okay, they used to do these things with us, like he used to do this. And as you change your life and things look different and you start bearing fruit, they're going to be looking to you. You are going to be the window that they see the love of Christ.
Yeah,
so good. I think that that's the crux of being kind and being challenged to be kind today.
Yeah.